Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Tonight is the Musanif Abdur Razaq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa rahmatullah alayhim jami'an. Allah be pleased with them all and have mercy on them all. All meaning the three generations of the early Muslims, known as what we call our Salaf. They came before us. Salaf as-Salih, the righteous predecessors. I was mixing the schedule up, so pardon me, those brothers and those people, sisters, whoever's following, more organized than me, was expecting the Musanif Ibn Abi Shayba. Some Musanif Ibn Abi Shayba. So on Saturday night, I flipped them around. I was doing it on this night. So Allahumma musta'an hasbunallah wa ni'mal. So tonight is the first night we're going to the book, the Musanif of Imam Abdur Razaq. We did two classes, introductory. Now we're actually going to the book. Bismillah tabarak wa ta'ala, nasallah at-tawfiq, wa nasallah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-ikhlas wa sidq. May Allah facilitate for us, may Allah give us sincerity and purity of our action and truthfulness. Ameen. Tayyib. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. يقول المصنف رحمه الله تعالى, the Imam Abdur Razaq, he says, باب المسح عليهما باب المسح عليهما من الحدث. يعني باب المسح عليهما means the two footwear. من الحدث, from when a person breaks his state of ablution. When a person breaks the state of ablution, meaning they go to the bathroom, they do urination or defecation, they break wind, they go to sleep. This is what is meant by hadath in this regard. Hadath means to relieve yourself. Hadath, to break the state of wudu. Hadath, to need to perform an act of purification. So you have two types of hadath. You have hadath al-asgaru and hadath al-akbaru. Al-hadath al-asgaru, hadath means when you are in a state of impurity. Asgaru means it's minor. You can solve that state of impurity by making istinja, meaning washing the private parts with water. Mada istijmaru, removing it with some type of dry substance, istijmaru, and or we could say also, as some contemporaries have said, you can use wipes for that. So hadath asghar, when you use the bathroom, you broke wind, you went to sleep, and that can be solved by making a wudu, ablution, cleaning the self. When you relieve yourself, the front, the back private, when you urinate, defecate, or at-tayammum. At-tayammum. Now, that's for hadath, al-asghar, minor impurities, they call it. Minor, breaking the state of purity. The major one I should add it also, you have from the minor also is the discharge of mani, meaning semen. If semen comes, like we say, the pre-ejaculation fluid, when the person gets excited, then you just wash that private part. You make wudu, just like you're going to make wudu to pray. Musanif mentioned this in the case of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He used to have this problem, and he was too embarrassed and had too much respect to go to the Prophet because it's his father-in-law. He's married to Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, which is his cousin. So he sent someone on his behalf to ask the Prophet, what if I have a problem with discharge? Seminal discharge, what do I do? And the Prophet said to wash the private part, to wash the penis, the area where you have the seminal discharge, and then make wudu, because wudu the salat. اغسل ذكر وتوضأ الوضوء كالوضوء للصلاة. Watch the private part and perform a simple ablution wudu, just like you're going to pray. أما المذي is sperm, not semen. When you ejaculate, now that's what's considered hadith al-akbaru. Hadith al-akbaru. You have to take a ghusl for that. So all that falls under asgar, minor, you make wudu. You clean the private, you make wudu. That's hadith al-asgaru. And when it comes to akbaru, you have to wash the whole body. So here when the Sheikh said Bab al-Masa alayhima, he's talking about the footwear that somebody can wipe over only with hadith al-asgaru. You can only do masah when it's minor, impurity, minor, when you have a minor state of impurity, meaning you urinate, defecate, you go to sleep, and you break wind. And when we say go to sleep here, we mean a sleep where you don't know what's going on. If you go to sleep and you can still hear what's going on, you were in the masjid, for example, and they called adhan, and you heard it, and you got up, and you know that you might have nodded, you know that you snored a little bit, you may have heard yourself snore, but you also heard every time the door opened, somebody came in. You heard footsteps, you were aware, and you know you didn't hear a sound of breaking wind, you didn't smell a discharge of a fart or a poop, as they call it, then you can get up and pray. And we have hadith where that happened. Some companions were sitting up, sleeping in the masjid, waiting for salat. Some were lying down. And when the adhan was called, some of them got up and to pray without wudu. Others went to make wudu. And the Prophet didn't blame them, because those who got up to make wudu, they knew that I was out of it. Maybe somebody had to wake them up, But the ones that were sitting up and some that were lying down, they got right up. That means they were aware enough to pray, where their hadith and asgaru, had it happened, had they pooed it, had they farted, they would have known. And of course, they didn't go to the bathroom on themselves, and their sleep was not what they call a deep sleep. They call it naum amiq with an ayn. Naum amiqa, ayn, mim, kaf. That means a deep sleep. You don't know what happened. That one you have to make wudu. But just sleep by itself doesn't necessarily mean that you broke your wudu. So here, when the Shaykh said Bab al-Masa alayhima, and he's talking about anything over the feet, and that which would not require you to make ghusl, that which would require you to make wudu, istinja, and at-tayammum. That is the criterion for wiping over footwear. Abdur Razaq, rahimahullah ta'ala, on Sufyan al-Thawri. So Abdur Razaq, he narrates from Mada, yani Sufyan al-Thawri. Sufyan al-Thawri was Sufyan ibn Uyayna, two of the ulama from our Salaf that are from the ulama of the Tabi'een. They are his shuyukh. He's narrating from them, and in this case, yani, he's narrating from Imam al-Thawri, Sufyan al-Thawri. Masa ala kufaini. Masaha ala kufaini. Wiping. Here, kuf means the two types they used to wear. The ones that were made out of some furry type of material and the ones that were kind of like a leather. These were the moccasins that they would wear in the desert, their footwear. So the Imam Abdur Razaq is narrating from al-Thawri. When you hear al-Thawri, means Sufyan al-Thawri, about wiping over the leather or the furry. Any type of moccasin fits this description. Any shoe, anything that covers the toes and the ankles, this is all inclusive. Called that Imam Abdur Razaq narrating Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, إِذَا أَدْخَلْهُمَا, if you entered the two of them, طَاهِرًا, and you're already in a state of purity. طَاهِرَتَيْنِ, طَاهِرًا, yani, in a state of purity. طَاهِرَتَيْنِ means yani, that both feet have been entered when you're in a state of purity. Very important. Very important. إذا أدخلهما, huma means two. إذا أدخلهما, if you enter both feet into footwear. طاهرتين, meaning that both of them have been washed. He didn't say tahira, he said tahiratini, because he said huma before tahirataini. Tahiratini means two things are washed. Huma, two things are washed. What are the two things? The 2 feet that are going in the footwear. And Imam Sufyan, yani, is mentioned in this. Abdur Razaq said, based on the hadith, that the Prophet said that the person he said, Bima in hadith. Bima in hadith meaning from this hadith that the Prophet said that a person can do this action, and he illustrated wiping over his two things that's on his feet that he entered with 2 feet with a complete wudu, ila al-ghadin. He said, ila al-ghadin means you have to the next day. To the next day. So here, one of the ways the Prophet mentioned this, ila al-ghadin. You can do it until tomorrow. You can do it to the next day. The Prophet said, لو توضأت حين. Let me go back. فإنك تمسك من الغد من حد فإنك تمسك حد مثلها من الغد. So Imam Sufyan said this verdict of wiping over the footwear, as long as you enter them with both feet being washed at the end of your wudu, huma tahiratayni. He said it comes from this hadith that he's about to mention, that as long as you do that, then he's going to tell you how it should be understood. Because some people said that it's from the time that you put the footwear on that you count, and some said no, that's from the time that you actually wipe that you count. He said, يعني Imam Sufyan Abdur Razaq is quoting from him, لو توضأت يعني من الفجر, if you were to make wudu at fajr, فلم تحدث, and you didn't go to the bathroom, neither did you break wind, neither did you go into a deep sleep, neither did you have seminal discharge. I'm adding all of those because they're under the hukum. They're under the rule. The Sheikh is not saying them, I'm adding them so you can understand how to apply the hadith. If you were to make wudu at fajr, and you never went to the bathroom, you never urinated, you never defecated, you never had any discharge from the private of a man or a woman, and you didn't go into a deep sleep where you wouldn't know what took place, you didn't break wind, you didn't fart. It said, Ila al-asr, can asr. And now when asr comes, and you wipe over them at asr, he said, then you are allowed to wipe over them up until the next day at asr. So let's go back again. Imam Abdur Razaq is quoting from the narration of Imam Sheikh Sufyan al-Thawriyu. And al-Thawriyu, he said, the chapter, Sheikh Abdur Razaq al-Sunani, Imam al-Sunani, said the chapter of wiping over the two footwear when you entered both of them into the footwear and they have been washed with a complete wudu. He's narrating from al-Thawri that this is based on the hadith that has the meaning that gives you this ability to do this. And now the Shaykh, he explains it. He said how this is applied. That the Prophet has told us this, how to apply. He said, so if you woke up at Fajr, why did he start at Fajr? Because we should be praying at Fajr. He could have started at Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. He started at Fajr, showing you the way of the Salaf. People who pray Fajr. He said, so if you were to wake up at Fajr, you made wudu and you entered, the subject matter is putting your feet in something covering the toes up to the ankle. It's not sheer, it's considered footwear, and you started Fajr. He said that you didn't break any when, you didn't break any when, you didn't break any when, you didn't do anything to break the wudu. You didn't break when, didn't go to the bathroom, didn't discharge anything, didn't go into a deep sleep until Asr. Now Asr, you go to the bathroom, what are you allowed to do? You're allowed to masa ala khufayn, you're allowed to wipe. You're allowed to wipe. Tayyib. He said, and if you did that at Asr, you could keep wiping over those two every time you needed to until the next day at Asr. وقال عبد الرزاق رحمه الله عبد الله ابن مبارك عبد الله ابن مبارك ما شاء الله هذه جبال السلف من أئمة الهدى والدين الحق من المحدثين من علماء يعني والفقهاء. These are the great mountains, scholars that are like mountains. They are like firm in the religion by the permission of Allah. The scholars of hadith, scholars of jurisprudence, Abdullah ibn Mubarak radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Shaykh Abdur Razaq, Imam Abdur Razaq al-Sunani quotes now on Abdullah ibn Mubarak. قال, he says, حدثنا عاصم ابن سليمان نعم أبو بكر يعني ماذا Abdullah Mubarak narrate from Asim ibn Sulaiman and Abi Uthman and Abi Uthman and Abi Uthman So Abdullah Mubarak Abdur Razaq Sanani, he narrates from his Sheikh Abdullah Mubarak. قال حدثني عاصم ابن سليمان. عاصم ibn Sulaiman, Abdullah ibn Mubarak. Abdullah Mubarak is narrated from his Sheikh, Yani Asim, Yani ibn Sulaiman. And Abi Uthman, and Asim ibn Sulaiman narrates from his Sheikh, Yani Mada, and Abi Uthman and Nahdi. He tells a story about Abdullah ibn Umar. He said, حضرت سعدا وابن عمر. حضرت سعدا وابن عمر. He said, I was in the presence of Sa'd, yani Sa'd ibn Abi. Yani, he was in the presence of Yani Sa'd or Ibn Umar. Yani Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and Abdullah ibn Umar, who were two of the Sahaba. يختصمان إلى الأمرة. They are bathing, yani to go on Umrah. And then he said, so I want to ask them about the issue of how to apply Masha ala Khufayn. He says, so Umar said, wipe over the both of them. Yani, he said, يَمْسَحَ عَلَيْهِمَا مِثْلُ سَاعَةِ. So you wipe over them from the time that مِنْ يَوْمِهِ وَلَيْلَتِهِ. From the time that you wipe يَوْمِهِ وَلَيْلَتِهِ, yani 24 hours ago. So here you see that this narration complements the first one, where Imam Abdur Razaq mentioned the narration from Sufyan and Thawri that if you were to break your ablution that you started at Fajr at Asr, then you go to the next day at Asr. Here in the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he said you will start and use the word sa'a, you mean time. The time that you started wiping, you will go to that next day. He said, Yomi wa layla, yani meaning 24 hours later, the same time that you actually wiped. The same time that you actually wiped. Now, so now Sheikh al-Majdi is going to comment on this from our ulama, who's from the students of Sheikh Nasr al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala. The Sheikh, he says, that there's a difference of opinion. There's a speech between the scholars. When does the wiping period start? Is it from the time you put them on? Or is it from the time that you wipe? Is it from the time the laps? Laps means putting on something. Or min bab, min waqt al-masah. This is a difference of opinion between the scholars. That your time starts from the time you put it on. Others say from the time that you wipe. And that's why these two first narrations are so important, because it clarifies to you what the Salaf were upon as to the discrepancy. If I make wudu at Fajr, like the first narration, and I put them on, and then I break my wudu at Asr, when does the period begin? When do I stop wiping? Is it the next day at Fajr when I put them on? Laps, that's what Sheikh Majdi is saying here. Or does the time start? I can wipe all the way until when I broke, which would mean Asr. And so those scholars that would say the time starts at Waqt Badamin, Waqt Laps, then they would say at Fajr, that's it. You have to take that footwear off, wash again, and then you can start all over. Where those who said, the time starts from al-mas, when you wipe, then they would say, Fajr, no, you good. If you slept in that footwear and woke up at Fajr, you make wudu, you don't take it off, you just mess it. Why? Because you still have Fajr, Dhuhr, you have to go 24 hours from when you wipe. That is also according to the first narration. So this is what Sheikh is saying. Sheikh Majdi in his comment on this issue. Because there's a difference of opinion between the scholars. When does the time start, from putting on or from the actual wiping? The Sheikh said, the truth is, all of the scholars of jurisprudence, the jurists, they said, the Sheikh, he said, the truth of the matter with this discrepancy, Jamil Fuqaha, Allah Musta'an, all of the scholars, when you look at them talking about this from the Fuqaha, they said the time starts when you put it on. He said all of them. Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmed, he said, وَلَكِنْ رَجَّحَا Imam Nawawi ila al-Masah. But Imam Nawawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, Rajaha means he brought what's more likely to be the case, the mess, the wiping. And it's because of the likes of these narrations that you find the people such as Imam Nawawi saying from the wiping and not from the inception of putting them on. Now, and this is what Sheikh Majdi said, al-haqq anna raja laysa min mas bal wa min al-labs bal wa min mas min lubs bal min al-mas. He said, but really the right position based on these narrations is that the time starts from when you wipe and not from when you put them on. So what we learn here is that, but the difference of opinion is that many of them, the Sheikh, he said, Jamia Fuqaha, ذهب إلى لبس. They said that it's the issue of when you put them on. وجه إمام النووي رحمه الله تعالى أن ليس يقيد بوقت اللبس بل هو يقيد بوقت المس. It's restricted to when you wipe and not when you put those things on your feet in a state of tahara. The Shaykh, he reiterates, Shaykh al-Majdi, أن التقييد ماذا بدأ في مس, that the limit, the restriction is when you wiped and not when you put them on. They're restricted from wiping over them when the time comes 24 hours from when you wipe, and not from the time you put them on. Now, هذا قول صحيح. That's the right position with the difference of opinion between the ulama. He said, and this means if a person was in a state of wudu and they put something on their feet and then they broke it from whatever time. He said, like for example, that happened at Dhuhr, then you go Yom Walayd means 24 hours to that time the next day, which would mean at Dhuhr, because you go from when you wipe and not from when you put them on. He said, إنه يكرهه على بعض يعني هذا hadith, that Imam al-Nawawi took that position because he's agreeing with the likes of these narrations. Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala. And this is a side point that some people tried to say about Imam al-Nawawi. He was yani Shafi'i, and indeed he was Shafi'i in his fit, but he was not Shafi'i in the way of, in the meaning of taqleed, madhab al-Shafi'i. He was not a Shafi'i as it relates to whatever was a position from the Shafi'i madhab, whatever Imam Shafi'i took as a position, and those who came after him up until Imam al-Nawawi's time, that he ruled with that. لا إذا كان يعارض الدليل أو رجح قولا آخر عن القول الإمام الشافعي، فإمام النووي ذهب مع الدليل. Imam al-Nawawi will go with evidence. If it was something that went against Imam Shafi'i and the main madhab teachings and positions of Imam al-Nawawi, he wouldn't be shy to leave it for the evidence, because as all of them said, إذا صحح حديث فهو ماذا ومذهبي. If the hadith reached me, if the narration was authentic, if it was something that I didn't know, but that hadith came and I found out, I would choose that over my statement. So this is an example of that from the position of Imam Nawawi. Sheikh Majdi mentions this as he's given the commentary on the Musanif of Imam Abdur Razaq, rahimahumullah. So that was those narrations for that issue. And again, we want to go back and make sure we understand the issue of wiping over the footwear. You have what they call khuf or khufaini. Khufaini referred to footwear for the Arabs from that time that were leather, some were fur. And they come above the ankle and they cover the entire foot. And the Prophet ﷺ taught us to wipe over the top of them. As Ali ibn Abi Talib said, لو كان الدين من الرأي لقد مسحت أسفلها. He said, if the deen was to use your opinion, to opinionate was part of the religion, how we follow Islam, and Ali said, I would have wiped under the bottom. I would have wiped under the bottom of my footwear. He said, but the Prophet ﷺ taught us to wipe under the bottom. No, the Prophet taught us to wipe over the top. So we wipe over the top. I gotta change this, my mic that. We wipe over the top, as Ali ibn Abi Talib mentioned. Second thing, this does include socks that we didn't get to yet. That section is going to come. What type of socks, and if they're transparent or not, if they're wool, cotton, all of that's going to come. If there's some type of tear in the sock or the shoe or the kuf, does this disqualify you from wiping? As some madhab say, all of that's going to come. The point here is that you're able to wipe. You're able to wipe. Some people don't take that. Many of the Hanafis don't take that because they said Allah said to wash in the Quran. And the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, actually the action of the Prophet is just something for him, but we have to follow the injunction from the Quran, which is Allahumma musta'an. This is wrong. The Prophet ﷺ seen Mughira ibn Shu'bah and the Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, they were traveling. And by the way, this ruling is for those who are not traveling. This ruling is for those who are local, the 24-hour issue. When you travel, then you get extended time. We'll deal with that when that chapter comes. But this is talking about when you're home and you want to wipe. The Prophet ﷺ was on a journey, and Mughira ibn Shu'bah was making wudu, and he went to take off his footwear in which he already entered them in a state of wudu. And the Prophet said, Da'ahuma, leave them on, don't take them off. فَإِنَّكَ دَخَلْتَهُمَا طَاهِرَتَيْنِ. He said, because when you made wudu earlier, or whenever you made wudu, you put them on, you were in a state of purity. So there's no need to remove them to wash, just wipe. So this is the command from the Prophet, to wipe. And the ulama, they said that the ayat in Surah Al-Ma'idah is read two ways. Well, Tabaraka wa ta'ala say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, all you believe. They call this the ayat of wudu. إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, when you want to pray, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, wash your faces, وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, wash the hand all the way to the elbow, the entire hand, the fingers between them, the wrist, the forearm, to the elbow. فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, to the elbow. وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. Here the ayat is read two ways. Here Allah said, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, to wipe your head. وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. And وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسَكُمْ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسَكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. So here the head, ru'usa, is with the fatha, and arjulakum with the fatha. So when they're read with the fatha, they take the ruling of the beginning of the ayat, faqsilu, to wash. But as the scholar said, it can be read with the kasra, wamsahu bi ru'usikum. If you say ru'usikum, then this ayat means that you wipe over the kufs, just like you wipe over the head. So what the ayat is read two ways. Abdullah ibn Abbas mentioned wamsahu bi ru'usakum wa arjulakum. What the fatah means to wash, and if you say wamsahu bi rujulikum wa bi ru'usikum wa arjulikum, then that means to wipe over the head and to wipe over the foot. So the ayat has two rulings, just like the Prophet mentioned to Mughira ibn Shu'bah, don't take them off, wipe over them, because you entered them in a state of purity, as the narration you heard in the Musanif of Abdur Razaq as-San'ani. Now, so this, I want to make sure that we understand if it's minor impurities, meaning anything but a wet dream or sex or someone ejaculating, then anything coming from the private part, front or back, any deep sleep, any breaking wind, then that person has to wash the private parts, make wudu. And once you put the footwear on, then the clock ticks from the time that you wipe, meaning you have to break your wudu, and then wipe. It starts from there and not from the time you actually put the footwear on. As you heard, many of the ulama take that position, but Imam an-Nawawi rajjahaha, he took an opposite direction because of the likes of these narrations and the Musanif of Imam Abdur Razaq. And inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala, we'll stop here. It also includes, I want to mention, eating camel meat, and not necessarily if you have a bleed from a wound, as some people try to say, or throwing up, but definitely the text shows if you break any wind, you defecate, you urine, a deep sleep, some semen comes from the private, any discharge, camel meat, and the likes. Asking subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us and to increase us in knowledge. So, Muhammad.